Discover how an unexpected night with a black man transformed a CEO's heart. Incredibly inspiring. Sarah Thompson stood in the grand ballroom, the grandeur of the industry gala swirling around her like a dizzying current. Crystal chandeliers dripped with light, while laughter mingled with the clinking of champagne glasses. Yet, as the CEO of a leading tech firm, she felt like an imposter in her own skin. Surrounded by the affluent elite, she couldn't shake the gnawing emptiness that sat in her chest, a stark contrast to the accolades and dollar signs her upbringing had instilled in her. The night's chatter faded as she spotted him, a man whose presence was electric against the polished walls. Marcus, an artist with a vibrant spirit, was captivating not just in his appearance, but in the stories he shared about his life. It was as if he held a mirror to her soul, reflecting the disconnection that had become unbearable. "Success isn't about the money, Sarah," he told her, and his words landed heavy in the air. "It's connection. It's finding a purpose that feeds your heart." In that moment, Sarah hesitated. Was he right? She thought about her relentless climb, a dizzying ascent fueled by ambition, only to find she was utterly alone at the summit. The driving hunger for recognition had consumed her, yet here was a man who turned pain into beauty, who saw dreams beyond profit margins. The pull was magnetic, igniting a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in years. Just then, her phone buzzed violently, shattering the budding connection. The message drew her back into reality, each letter a dagger that dug deeper into the embers of her heart. Her estranged father was ill, critically so. The man who had molded her fears and ambitions was frail and vulnerable, far from the titan of industry she'd always idolized. The pressure of the world she inhabited pressed down on her shoulders, suffocating her in a rush of conflicting emotions. Success, she thought desperately, what is it really? As she fought with the decision to prioritize family or career, the words of Marcus echoed in her mind. He challenged everything she had known, all she had strived for, and had shaken a foundation she was beginning to question. Could success be the community she had turned her back on? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As she contemplated the nudge from Marcus, her heart raced with the weight of her privilege. The rift between her current life and the struggles of her childhood neighbors loomed larger with each passing moment. Memories flooded back, the laughter, the dreams lost, and the friends left behind in the pursuit of wealth. Yet her father lay sick, tethering her to decisions that felt increasingly impossible. The community center, a crumbling relic she'd long dismissed, flickered in her mind like the flame of a dying candle. What if it was a way to connect with Marcus's world, to breathe life back into something meaningful? But that meant stepping away from the corporate status she'd fought so hard to maintain, unraveling an identity she'd cultivated for years. Was she ready to risk it all? As tears threatened to spill, Sarah faced a stark realization. This crossroads hinted at something far deeper than family reconciliation. It was about redefining her entire narrative. The revelation felt electric, even paralyzing, as she considered what such a choice would mean for her future. Just as the weight of her revelations began to lift, another thought crashed down. What if her father's illness unveiled a secret long buried? A deeper truth about her family, perhaps, one that could shift everything she thought she knew, extinguishing the last remnants of certainty. With her pulse racing, Sarah reached for her phone, eager to call Marcus and share the tremors of her awakening. Would she dare to uncover the truths that waited, wanting to scream from the shadows of her past? The air crackled with anticipation, the stakes heavier than ever as she prepared for a call that could define her existence. As Sarah's fingers hovered above the screen, she hesitated. The image of Marcus flashed through her mind, his laughter, the gleam in his eyes when he spoke about art and connection. A man whose world was alive with the vivid colors of experience, unlike the monochrome board meetings that filled her days. Was she truly ready to bridge that gap? Her heart raced, caught between longing for authenticity and the deep-seated fear of exposing her vulnerabilities. The last time she reached out, truly reached out, felt like a lifetime ago. How had she allowed herself to become so disconnected? The corporate accolades had replaced genuine human interactions, and now she stood at a precipice. The dizzying heights of her career were mere shadows compared to the warmth of shared dreams. Finally, Sarah pressed the call button, her breath hitching as it rang. The sound felt foreign, almost like an intrusion into her carefully constructed world. Every second felt like an eternity. When Marcus's voice came through, warm and inviting, she felt her pulse calm, if only for a moment. "Sarah, is everything okay?" he asked, concern lacing this tone. I don't know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm at a turning point, and I need your perspective." Collecting herself, she spilled the juggernaut of thoughts swirling in her mind, the burden of her father's illness and the desire to rediscover a purpose beyond profits. For the first time in years, she spoke without the corporate masks she had worn like armor. Marcus listened intently, responding not with empty platitudes, but with genuine understanding. He spoke of his own confrontations with adversity, the importance of embracing discomfort and finding strength in vulnerability. As their conversation flowed, a tantalizing idea took root in her mind. What if she infused her leadership role with the lessons learned from Marcus? What if her vision extended beyond technology, fostering connections that could inspire her employees and community alike? The thought was liberating and terrifying. It meant shedding the corporate persona for something far more authentic. "Have you ever considered using your platform for something greater?" Marcus posited gently. "Your company has the resources to create change, not just financially, but by leading with your heart." The words clicked into place, igniting something inside her. Was it possible to redefine success through connection, infusing her corporate strategy with creativity and empathy? The idea was bold yet resonant, echoing the very sentiments he had expressed that night in the ballroom. A vision began to unfold, tenuous yet compelling. Initiatives that could inspire employees to engage, to contribute, to connect with their roots. It was daunting to consider, but the thrill of a new direction sent electricity through her veins. But amidst this burst of inspiration, a nagging doubt crept in. What would her board think? Her position rested on maintaining a facade of strict professionalism. Would she risk everything she had built for a chance to follow her heart and embrace vulnerability? As she pondered the intersection of fear and possibility, the realization hit her. Meaningful change required more than just discussion. It demanded action. If she wanted to define success on her own terms, she needed a strategy, a plan that would incorporate Marcus's principles into her corporate culture. With renewed determination, Sarah vowed to meet the challenge head-on. She would confront her fears, engage with her past, and attempt to build a bridge back to her community. This marks a pivotal moment in her personal and professional evolution, a vibrant canvas begging for color. But even as she fought to map these new territories, another text from her father surfaced, a simple yet evocative question. Are you ready to face the truth? The weight of the inquiry echoed through her mind as she steeled herself for the next steps. Could she cope with what lay ahead? As she set her phone down, a sense of urgency swirled within her. The time had arrived for deeper exploration of her family's roots and the power they held over her present. What truth was waiting to be uncovered? And how would it redefine everything she thought she knew about herself?
Stepping into the office the next morning, Sarah felt a charged mix of anticipation and apprehension coursing through her. Each sterile cubicle was a testament to her past successes, yet now they seemed like cages, trapping her within a version of herself that felt increasingly irrelevant to her transformed aspirations. The familiar whir of computers and hushed conversations cast a sharp contrast to the vibrant ideas swirling in her mind. She sat at her desk and gazed out the window, the bustling chaos of the city below reflecting the internal turbulence she felt. A flicker of doubt whispered in her consciousness. Was she truly ready to confront the status quo? Her grip tightened on the edge of her desk as she remembered Marcus's words about embracing discomfort. That tiny spark of resolve returned, igniting her determination to blend her vision for connection with the business prowess she had honed over years. What would it take to begin this transformation? She opened her notebook, filled with notes from her late-night reflections and conversations with Marcus. The pages were a mix of personal musings and ideas for initiatives that could rally her team around a culture of creativity and compassion. Envisioning what her proposal might look like, she confronted her hesitations head-on. Sarah resolved to schedule a meeting with her executive team, a confrontation she had put off for too long. As she drafted her proposal, outlining a plan for social initiatives, she felt a knot of anxiety within her. She knew she would have to face critical questions and the potential pushback from colleagues who thrived on the culture she now wanted to dismantle. Each bullet point she typed was an act of rebellion against the facade of discrepancy she had upheld for years. She envisioned workshops framed around storytelling, a monthly creative initiative encouraging employees to engage with their personal narratives. Work more than just an obligation, but rather a space for personal growth and collective innovation. As the day unfolded, she focused on her upcoming meeting while remaining aware of the undercurrent of tension surrounding her in the office. A few coworkers approached her, drawn to her unusual energy. Sarah found herself laughing more easily, an unexpected result of embracing her authenticity. But beneath the laughter was a simmering query. How long could she maintain this newfound strength against the tide of skepticism? Finally, her scheduled meeting loomed. Sitting at the conference table, the air thick with anticipation, she looked around at her colleagues. Their expressions were devoid of the warmth she craved, reflecting the distant professionalism that had defined their interactions for years. As she opened the discussion, her heart raced. Sarah presented her vision, detailing how emotional intelligence and engagement would not only uplift morale but bolster productivity. As she poured her heart out, she saw a flicker of confusion, even skepticism, wash over the faces of some executives. Are we here to foster creativity or just to hit quarterly targets? One board member, Jeffrey, interrupted. His tone dripped with cynicism, an embodiment of everything she felt cornered by. The room held its breath, the tension palpable. Both are possible, she countered, steadying herself against the weight of his critique. We can create a culture that embodies purpose while still reaching our financial goals. But the words felt hollow, heavy with doubt, their power diminished by the fundamental conflict in that room. She pressed on, the storm of uncertainty raging within her. What if she had miscalculated? What if her colleagues remained unmoved? The very thought of failure clawed at her resolve, but she took a deep breath, reminding herself of the passion she had felt in her conversation with Marcus. It was time to be vulnerable, to test her mettle and face the resistance not just from her team, but from within herself. Just as the board began to counter her points, she caught a glimpse of her phone glowing on the table. Another text from her father flashed across the screen. Facing the truth isn't just about clarity, it's about bravery. It struck her with a new sense of resolve. She wasn't alone in this battle. Could she finally redefine what it meant to succeed while facing the emotional truths lurking beneath her surface? Or would she crumble under the weight of expectation? As the meeting dragged on, the question loomed larger. What price would she pay for authenticity? And could she handle the backlash that might come with it? With her heart pounding, Sarah prepared to confront not just her colleagues, but the fear buried deep within her. The moment of truth was just beginning. Strength would be required for the journey ahead. Would she emerge transformed, or be left grappling again with the shadows of her past? As the board meeting dissolved into a fray of skeptical comments and defensive posturing, Sarah felt the weight of disapproval settle heavily on her shoulders. The words she had been so passionate about began to drown in a sea of doubt. How could they not see it? Echoed in her mind. With each passing moment, that initial flicker of confidence dimmed, but deep inside, a seed of defiance began to take root. The questions from Jeffrey ricocheted back in her mind. He was right in a sense. They had thrived on metrics and success stories spun from quarterly reports, not inspiring narratives. Yet beneath every number was a person, perhaps even a story waiting to be told, drowning silent in the monotony. The disconnect ate away at her resolve. After the meeting, Sarah retreated to her office, closing the door behind her as if it would block out the pessimism swirling just outside. She sank into her chair, fingers intertwined behind her head while she stared blankly at the ceiling. What now? Was this who she had become? A distant echo of the idealistic novice she once was? Her nails dug into her scalp as frustration overcame her. But there, in that closed sanctuary, the truth began to settle. Reflecting on her father's text, reminded of the courage it takes to be true, she realized how much she had withheld. The deeper fear wasn't about productivity. It was the potential backlash from those too comfortable in their roles to see the truth. It was her job to navigate them through discomfort, to lead by example. With renewed intention, she reached for her notebook again, flipping through the pages filled with disjointed ideas. This time, she allowed herself to explore them without constraint. What if her initial plan to integrate storytelling into their culture could also be a way to cultivate empathy? It wasn't just about emotional intelligence. It could redefine leadership itself. Suddenly, a new initiative blossomed in her mind, a mentorship program where stories would not just shared, but exchanged, fostering deep connections through structured vulnerability. That evening, Sarah could barely sleep, her mind racing with ideas. She envisioned a workshop where executives could share their personal journeys, drawing out tales of challenges and triumphs. It was essential that they stepped out of their hardened shells and into each other's lives, leveling the power dynamics that had become so entrenched. It was a risk, yes, one that required them all to be brave. Yet, isn't that what leadership meant? The willingness to expose oneself to vulnerability? As sunrise broke the next morning, she was invigorated. The phone alarm chimed, but she was already on her feet, bustling about with energy. In those quiet morning hours, she drafted a new proposal. This time, it was laden with her authentic voice. She framed it as an opportunity for the executives to strengthen their leadership capabilities while embracing their individual truths. With the added twist of integral storytelling sessions, she imagined them unveiling their struggles and successes, re-establishing true connection. Once again, as she moved into her day, she felt a shift in her energy. Colleagues smiled in passing, intrigued by the change in her posture, the confidence radiating from within. Words of encouragement seeped through the office, despite the environment's guarded ethos. A few coworkers approached her to express interest in her plans, their curiosity piqued. Yet vital questions remained. Would her colleagues embrace this leap into authenticity? Would Jeffrey and the others choose to engage with the vulnerability that had long been omitted? The memories of the heated board meeting loomed. There would be a reckoning. The meeting for her new proposal stood days away. Adrenaline coursed through her as she practiced what she would say, imagining confrontations and support alike. Still lingering was the shadow of doubt, but a sharp clarity was forming. The real confrontation would not just be with the board, but with the remnants of her fear and the self-preserving habits that had stymied her. How far was she willing to go, and what would it take to break free from the confines of her own trepidations? The moment was approaching when she would have to demand courage from not just them, but from herself. Could she embody the authenticity she wished to cultivate while facing the uncharted territory ahead? The day before the meeting dawned with an unsettling stillness in the air. Sarah awoke early, the weight of anticipation pressing heavily on her chest. Despite the newfound resolve that had blossomed within her, apprehension loomed. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror and scrutinized herself closely. Was the woman staring back truly ready to instigate change, or was she merely fabricating illusions of confidence? As she prepared for work, her thoughts spiraled through plans and possibilities. Would her colleagues appreciate being dragged into unexplored emotional terrain? Her own experiences felt raw, and she feared their judgments if she faltered. The thin line between authenticity and vulnerability presented itself like a tangled rope, coaxing her to either embrace it or cower away. Arriving at the office, she noticed an unfamiliar tension in the atmosphere. Conversations halted when she entered the room, and it felt as if the walls were closing in. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the purpose behind her proposal. Each story shared would be a thread, weaving a stronger organizational fabric built on trust, a vision she believed could uplift everyone. "Hey, Sarah," came a voice from the back. It was Mia, a junior analyst who had recently shown interest in the initiative. "I heard you're presenting your idea tomorrow. When do we get to dive into the storytelling sessions?" The genuine excitement radiating from Mia awakened a flicker of warmth in Sarah's heart. "Soon, I hope. Your participation would mean a lot." It dawned on her that every person invested in the process may inspire a ripple effect. They could venture from their isolated spaces, exchanging fragments of their narratives, transforming fear into connection. She spent the rest of the day fleshing out her proposal, biting back the urge to challenge her own worthiness. Knowing the board's tendency for skepticism, she worked to craft a more compelling narrative. What if she underscored the tangible benefits of emotional intelligence alongside storytelling? If she presented metrics on increased engagement and productivity tied to empathy, perhaps it would resonate more deeply with even the most resistant colleagues. As she connected the dots, her heart raced. This was no longer just an initiative. It was a critical battleground for leadership evolution, an extraordinary chance to ignite growth within herself and those around her. Facing Jeffrey would be daunting, yet he too had vulnerabilities, hidden behind layers of executive bravado. What if she could reach the humanity within him? That evening, as Sarah reclined on her couch, the hum of the world outside felt distant. She closed her eyes, envisioning the boardroom, imagining how she would disseminate her vision to them. The stakes were higher than her ego or reputation. This was about redefining the workplace culture, shifting the paradigm towards shared experiences. Thoughts raced through her mind as she practiced her opening words. The fusion of storytelling and leadership didn't merely exist in her imagination. It was alive, pulsating with potential. Yet, would it resonate? Just as doubt began to creep back in, her phone buzzed with a message from Mia. "Can't wait for tomorrow. Let's make this happen." A smile crept onto Sarah's face. Her heart felt lighter. There was power in unity, an ever-growing whisper of strength emanating from those willing to believe alongside her. But the question lingered. Could she truly invoke the transformative power of storytelling in a space ripe with skepticism? Would her vulnerability invite others to shed their protective layers, or would it expose her to further isolation? The truth settled into her gut. This wasn't merely about the proposal, it was a trial of her character. As night enveloped the city, Sarah lay awake, her mind swirling with unresolved questions. Tomorrow wasn't just another meeting. It was a decisive moment that would either define her journey in this role or urge her toward a new path entirely. The tension crashed within her, threatening to overwhelm, yet calling forth the deepest reservoirs of courage. Would she rise to the occasion as the leader she aspired to be, or would she let fear shackle her ambitions? The true test was just around the corner, waiting. The morning sun seeped through the blinds, illuminating the room where Sarah lay. Her heart pounded in her chest as she shook off the remnants of a restless night. Today was the day. She slipped into her favorite navy blazer, the one that always seemed to elevate her confidence, and took a moment to center herself. Stepping into the day ahead felt monumental, an act of defiance against the self-doubt that had haunted her for so long. Walking into the office, the energy shifted palpably. Sarah could sense the figurative weight of every gaze in the room as she passed. While some colleagues offered fleeting smiles, others averted their eyes, as if avoiding a confrontation with the new Sarah, one ready to share her vision. She felt exposed, like a thread unspooling from the fabric of her carefully constructed professional persona. Yet, with each step toward the conference room, she reminded herself that genuine change often requires insecurity to be on display. As she entered, she found the table set with the agreement of skeptical faces, conspicuous notes already jotted on notepads, and the unmistakable aura of impending judgment. Sarah folded her hands, steadying her breathing. She had prepared for this. Every statistic, every story she planned to share simmered in her mind, waiting for their moment. "Thank you, everyone, for being here today," she began, her voice unwavering. It felt as if she were standing at the precipice of something vast and uncertain, but also infinitely rich in possibility. "I want to discuss a vision that goes beyond business metrics. This is about what it means to connect deeply with our work and each other." She opened her presentation with a personal story, one that tugged at the edges of vulnerability. It was about her own struggles to connect, to show up authentically in her role, and the transformative power that had appeared through storytelling. As she spoke, she saw the skepticism on her colleagues' faces begin to melt slightly. Their expressions softened, curiosity etched in place of preconception. Imagine, if you will, a workplace where everyone feels heard, where each person shares their story, revealing who they truly are. That's not just idealistic. Companies that implement emotional intelligence strategies report not only improved employee morale, but tangible boosts in retention and productivity, she outlined, showcasing her meticulously gathered data. Then she noticed Jeffrey, the often intimidating CEO, sitting with arms crossed, his posture projecting skepticism. A part of her twitched with doubt, but amid the anxiety fluttering in her stomach, another realization blossomed. She wasn't seeking his approval, but rather his awareness. "Jeffrey," she gestured toward him, "I recognize that this shift may feel uncomfortable, and that's valid. But perhaps it is important to confront discomfort if we want to evolve organizational culture." Silence enveloped the room, the kind that ironically amplifies thoughts. Holding her breath, Sarah could almost hear the internal grappling of her colleagues. Was her candor compelling them to reconsider, or would it tighten walls instead of breaking them? After presenting the data, she invited the group to pause and reflect. "Can each of you consider a moment in your own journey where sharing a piece of your story made a significant difference in your life?" she asked, her tone shifting from presentation to genuine engagement. One by one, hesitant voices began to fill the silence. Mia shared a childhood memory that connected her to the work she did now. Others followed, each narrative weaving additional connections between them, subtly diminishing the barriers of formality. Sarah felt a surge of hope. They were moving through uncharted waters together, and her theory was materializing before her eyes. Yet she was painfully aware that even this flicker of success could diminish in the harsh light of reality. What would happen if the initial sparks faded under scrutiny? What if this openness was met with derision at a later stage? As the session concluded, Jeffrey particularly appeared to weigh the atmosphere carefully. Would he take the bait, or retreat back into his familiar shell of skepticism? The question lingered in the air, colliding with Sarah's resolute belief in her mission. But there it was, on the cusp of her chest, a sense of uncertainty swirling with determination. The stakes were evolving right in front of her, and the path to transformation became abundantly clear. She was beginning to understand her capacity. It now hinged on the choices she would make in the coming days. The meeting closed, but Sarah's gaze remained fixed on Jeffrey. Their eyes locked briefly, and for a fraction of a second, she believed she detected a glimmer of curiosity hidden beneath his guarded facade. Would he too embrace this journey into vulnerability? As she exited the room, a swirl of possibilities enveloped her. This was just the beginning, each step in new directions brimming with potential. Tomorrow, she would need to confront not only Jeffrey's reaction, but also her own deepening commitment to fostering an environment where emotional connection could flourish. What lay ahead would demand her resolve in ways she had never anticipated, and the first daunting question arose again. Was she prepared to keep pushing against the flow of reluctance, or would she face an exhausting retreat back into her previous self? The following day unfolded with a weight that rested on Sarah's shoulders, an amalgamation of excitement and trepidation. She arrived early, her mind already racing through various scenarios. The uncertainty of Jeffrey's reaction gnawed at her. Would he acknowledge the value of her ideas, or would he shut down any further discussion? As the hours dragged by, Sarah focused on her tasks but felt as though she were in a perpetual state of waiting. Between emails, meetings, and incidental conversations, she kept an ear to the ground for any sign that her presentation had swayed others. Had she truly sparked curiosity, or was it merely an illusion, a flicker of hope in an otherwise stagnant environment? Lunchtime arrived, and she decided to grab her usual sandwich at a nearby cafe. Sitting at a small table, she attempted to process everything. Each bite felt heavy in her mouth as she gazed out the window, watching the world bustle by. The stark contrast between her internal chaos and the external flow of life. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. Her heartbeat quickened as she opened it, recognizing Jeffrey's name. "Can we meet? I want to discuss your presentation further," it read. The thrill coursed through her veins. This was an opportunity, one that felt like a leap toward the very thing she had feared just weeks ago. They agreed to meet later in his office. The reality of the moment struck her like a thunderbolt, both exhilarating and terrifying. What questions would he ask? Would he challenge her ideas or support them? Sarah arrived at his office 10 minutes early, her palms slightly damp on the smooth fabric of her blazer. If it had been remarkable to command attention before, this meeting felt monumental on a different scale. "Come in, Sarah," Jeffrey said as she knocked softly. His office was adorned with degrees and achievements that laid bare his successes, yet today the atmosphere was charged with a different energy. He gestured toward a chair across from his desk, eyes steady as he studied her. "First, I want to say that your presentation caught me off guard," he began, his voice measured yet warm. "Not just the data, but your willingness to be vulnerable. It made me rethink how we approach leadership and connection here." Her breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had longed for, but it was also an invitation to go deeper into the conversation. "Thank you, Jeffrey. I strongly believe emotional intelligence is critical for our growth. It's not just about the numbers," she replied, feeling emboldened by his openness. They discussed at length the implications of fostering deeper connections within the organization. Sarah expressed her ideas on initiating workshops that encouraged employees to share their personal narratives, creating a culture rooted in empathy and understanding. As the conversation progressed, she noticed Jeffrey leaning in, seemingly drawn in by her passion. Yet she couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that moments like these were fleeting. She needed to anchor his interest into actionable outcomes, or her dreams could evaporate with just one shift in business priorities. "Do you think the team would really embrace this?" he asked, his face revealing both curiosity and skepticism. Her stomach nodding, Sarah recognized the pivotal question. This was where her faith in the journey would either assert itself or falter. The choice loomed before her like a fork in the road. Change isn't easy, but if we lay the groundwork together, I believe they will respond, she affirmed, her voice steady. It's essential to start with dialogue, not just directives. You leading this is crucial, Jeffrey. He sat back, contemplating her words. We will have to address how the broader leadership team might view this, how they might resist. This was it. She sensed the opportunity spiraling into a confrontation she hadn't anticipated. Perhaps resistance is a signal we need to address, not just in others, but within ourselves as leaders. What holds you back from this evolution? Jeffrey's expression shifted. A flicker of introspection passed across his face, as if she had touched a nerve, revealing unspoken battles. This wasn't merely a business strategy discussion. It was about facing discomfort, about revealing what lay behind their professional facades. As their meeting drew to a close, a new realization settled within her, a sense of agency in her career she hadn't felt before. Could she truly lead this charge? Could she, particularly in confronting someone like Jeffrey, continue to push forward, challenging both her colleagues and herself? As she stepped back out into the bustling office floor, her heart raced. Discussions with Jeffrey were evolving into something larger than mere strategy. They could be defining moments. Yet the conflicts ahead felt daunting. Would the path she chose lead to collaboration or division? Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, an email update on a project she had hoped would be forgotten. Something about its tone felt dismissive. Tension twisted in her stomach as the uncertainty of the day loomed anew. The next steps were critical. Would she shape the narrative of change at the office, or would she find herself retreating into the familiar? The real struggle was beginning. The days following her meeting with Jeffrey felt like a taut string, close to snapping. Sarah's apprehension danced with an invigorating sense of purpose. She now found herself poised on the edge of transformation, both personally and professionally. Each moment spent at the office was a careful negotiation, a mental balancing act of shadows and light. She had stirred something in Jeffrey, and that spark could light a fire or fizzle out entirely. Determined to stay on course, Sarah devised a plan to gather informal feedback from her colleagues before launching any formal initiatives. She meticulously crafted an invitation that exuded openness, hoping to draw out honest opinions rather than surface-level critiques. The idea was to create a space for dialogue, a step toward igniting enthusiasm for her vision. With each carefully chosen word, she was maneuvering further into the arena of leadership. The afternoon of the day she sent her invitation arrived, punctuated by a palpable tension. She sat at her desk, her mind torn between excitement and dread, anxiously waiting for responses. What if they rebuffed her ideas? What if her colleagues, submerged in their routines, dismissed the notion of emotional intelligence as corporate fluff? Each potential scenario unraveled in her mind like a movie script, leaving her breathless at the thought of how easily things could slip away. A ping from her inbox broke her reverie. A response, or rather a flurry of them. Colleagues were curious about the initiative, buzzing with willingness to engage. Some even suggested additional topics to tackle in the sessions. Relief washed over her like rain on a parched landscape. She wasn't alone in this journey after all. They were clearly feeling the lingering desire for connection that she had intuitively sensed. Throughout the week that followed, Sarah continued to engage in dialogue with her peers. She approached them one by one, keenly aware of their unique personalities and motivations. It was exhausting, yet exhilarating. She discovered unexpected supporters among those she thought were indifferent or unapproachable. A quiet accountant shared her own struggles with work-life balance, while a particularly blunt project manager admitted the isolation he often felt in leadership roles. With every conversation, Sarah's confidence strengthened. She recognized a newfound courage within her. She had the ability to inspire others simply by listening and allowing them to articulate their challenges. Yet, amidst this momentum, lingering doubts shadowed her victories. Would Jeffrey support the direction she was heading? What if he didn't see the same potential in others that she did? The crucial moment came during a scheduled check-in with Jeffrey. As they settled into their seats, Sarah's nerves tightened. She had brought an agenda to tackle their strategic goals, but her heart thudded at the prospect of veering off script to share her insights from her recent conversations. Taking a deep breath, she felt the weight of her aspirations pressing against her resolve. "Jeffrey," she began, her voice steady but laced with urgency, "I think we have an opportunity here that extends beyond the initial goals I had in mind. The feedback I gathered has been overwhelmingly positive. People are eager for change. They want to connect, to share their challenges." He leaned forward, brow furrowed in concentration. "Are you suggesting we develop an initiative based on the responses from, what, just informal chats?" "Yes, but I believe these discussions reveal genuine needs. It's a yearning for more than just quarterly reports. It's about understanding the person behind the employee." Her words hung in the air, electric and uncertain. She saw the pulse of consideration in his eyes, but was prepared for his reticence. This approach could be a stretch, or a step backward. Silence draped between them, thick and suffocating. Sarah's heart pounded as she awaited his response. What did he see in her proposition? Skepticism or acceptance? "We can't overlook the broader implications for our leadership's vision," he finally said, his tone cautious yet not dismissive. "Tell me more about how you envision integrating these discussions into our framework." This moment ignited something within her, a spark of possibility. With renewed fire, she began outlining her thoughts, aware that this was more than a meeting, it was a mentor fulfilling his role in a potential leadership evolution. But as Sarah poured her passions into her words, another thought nagged at the back of her mind. Would her relentless pursuit of an emotional framework yield skepticism or become a model for others to follow?
She had taken a leap, yet the abyss loomed. She needed to navigate it carefully. The result of their conversation was too close to call. As she left his office, exhilaration clashed with anxiety. Change felt imminent, but so did the prospect of failure. With each step back to her desk, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The real question lingered in the pit of her stomach, once more begging for an answer. Could she truly foster the courage to follow through on this vision, despite the potential fallout? As she logged back into her computer, Sarah's heart raced. A notification flashed across her screen, a message from an unexpected sender. Anxiety and curiosity flooded her thoughts, churning with each moment she hesitated to click. What lay beyond that message? Sarah hesitated, staring at the screen as the notification lingered in her peripheral vision. Who could it be? As the seconds turned into a minute, her anxiety transmuted into a compulsion to click. Driven by an urge to explore, she opened the message, revealing a simple note from Kevin, a colleague she had only recently begun to chat with during her feedback sessions. "Sarah, can you meet me for coffee? I'd like to discuss ideas you mentioned in our last conversation. It's important." The words hung heavily in her mind, stirring both curiosity and apprehension. What mattered so much that he needed to speak in person? Intrigued, she quickly typed a response, suggesting a nearby cafe where they often met. As she hit send, doubt crept in. She couldn't shake the feeling that this conversation might steer her path toward unforeseen challenges. When she arrived at the cafe, the buzz of conversation and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her. Sarah spotted Kevin seated at their usual table, his face etched with a serious expression, the kind that made her instincts tingle. As she approached, she could read the urgency in his demeanor. "Hey, thanks for meeting me," he said, directing his energy toward her. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out suddenly." "Not at all," she replied, her curiosity piqued. "What's on your mind?"
He took a slow breath before diving in. "I've been thinking about your idea on emotional intelligence and how it could transform our work environment. But I have strong doubts. Some people might not resonate with it. They see it as touchy-feely and impractical." His honest admission tightened her chest. Would the very vision she was ready to champion be met with resistance, even from those she thought might support her? "I understand," Sarah said, striving to maintain her composure. "But isn't that where the potential for real change lies? Engaging with emotions can increase productivity, reduce turnover, and foster morale." Kevin nodded, but his frown deepened. "That's fair, but I also overheard some discussions among leadership after your meeting with Jeffrey. There's a palpable divide in how people view this approach.
Some are worried about what the company's focus has become. They fear it could undermine traditional performance metrics. A cold wave of realization washed over her. Instinctively, she knew leadership's hesitation could threaten her plans, maybe even jeopardize her place at the company. The spark of possibility she felt earlier flickered as doubt cast a shadow on her intentions. "Do you think Jeffrey might be hesitant to advocate for this?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't say for sure," Kevin replied, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "But it's a risk. People are set in their ways, and change can be a sharp pill to swallow. Have you thought about how this initiative might be perceived at the higher levels, beyond Jeffrey?" Each of his words ignited a collision of resolve and fear within her. If she didn't address these concerns head-on, she might end up undermining her vision before it began. "Maybe it's time to rethink my strategy," she said slowly, contemplating her next steps. "If I can't win over the skeptics, how can I create a framework that lasts?" Kevin leaned back, his expression softening. "You have the passion, Sarah, and that's crucial. Perhaps you could present this to Jeffrey again, framed with a clearer understanding of the pushback. Show him it's about balance, not a complete overhaul." "Right," she replied, the weight of her responsibility feeling both burdensome and liberating. Connecting with Kevin had opened a doorway to possibilities that could either reinforce her path or lead to pitfalls. The morning sunlight streaming through the cafe windows seemed to reflect her internal struggle. With every seeming setback, Sarah felt the stakes rise. If she didn't act decisively, her initiative could remain an idealistic dream rather than a concrete plan. "Maybe it's time to rethink my strategy," she said slowly, contemplating her next steps. "If I can't win over the skeptics, how can I create a framework that lasts?" Kevin leaned back, his expression softening. "You have the passion, Sarah, and that's crucial. Perhaps you could present this to Jeffrey again, framed with a clear understanding of the pushback. Show him it's about balance, not a complete overhaul." "Right," she replied, the weight of her responsibility feeling both burdensome and liberating. Connecting with Kevin had opened a doorway to possibilities that could either reinforce her path or lead to pitfalls. The morning sunlight streaming through the cafe windows seemed to reflect her internal struggle. With every seeming setback, Sarah felt the stakes rise. If she didn't act decisively, her initiative could remain an idealistic dream rather than a concrete plan. As she left the cafe, invigorated but burdened by the conversation, Sarah mulled over her next move. The call to adapt loomed over her like a specter, and she couldn't shake the feeling that deeper challenges awaited as she pressed forward. Just then, her phone buzzed again. An email notification, a request for a follow-up meeting with Jeffrey later that day. Her heart raced once more. This meeting would be pivotal. The time had come to solidify or shift her course dramatically. Would she be ready to face the opposition and articulate her vision more robustly than before? The moment of truth had arrived. Stepping into Jeffrey's office later that day, Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself as the weight of anticipation settled around her shoulders. The initial excitement from their last meeting had morphed into a thrilling urgency. She was ready to lay the framework for a transformative initiative. Yet uncertainty prickled her confidence.
Could she turn skepticism into support, or would the looming sense of doubt shadow her ambitions? "Sarah, good to see you," Jeffrey greeted her, gesturing for her to sit.
His tone was cordial, giving her a glimmer of hope. "Let's discuss where we went last time and your thoughts moving forward." "Thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate this opportunity," she began, her voice steady. "I've reflected on our previous conversation as well as some feedback I gathered. I believe that introducing emotional intelligence as a foundational aspect could not only align with our objectives, but enhance them." As Sarah spoke, she detailed her vision. A structured approach to integrating storytelling and emotional intelligence within the company culture. She underscored the potential impact on employee engagement, retention, and overall productivity. It wasn't merely about a trend or a passing whim. It was about cultivating a robust framework that honored both personal stories and professional aspirations. Her words flowed with conviction as she painted a vivid picture of a workplace where every voice mattered. Imagine if we encouraged our team to share personal narratives in workshops. This could foster empathy and trust, ultimately bridging gaps that have stifled our collaboration. The tension in the room shifted, and she could detect subtle changes in Jeffrey's demeanor. His eyebrows raised in thoughtfulness, a sign that her sincerity and clarity were landing. "Sarah, those ideas resonate, but specifics matter," he said. "How do you propose we implement this without disrupting our current structure? Resistance is a reality we can't ignore." At that moment, Sarah felt a surge of confidence, bolstered by her earlier conversation with Kevin. Steering this effort would require a calculated and empathetic approach. "I suggest starting with pilot workshops, open to anyone interested. We can gauge interest and feedback while showcasing tangible benefits. By analyzing the effects on team dynamics, we can gradually build a case for broader integration across departments." She watched as he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, but his expression softened, contemplating rather than dismissing. For the first time, she sensed that her approach was being taken seriously. "What you see as disruption, I see as an evolution in leadership," she continued, her voice unwavering. "We're not abandoning performance metrics, but rather enriching them. Employee satisfaction leads to improved performance. An investment in people yields measurable ROI. I can prepare a report illustrating this." Jeffrey nodded, and she could see the gears in his mind shifting. "Data will help, but you'll need to ensure buy-in from those who are particularly resistant," he cautioned. Sarah felt emboldened, each moment in the conversation steering her toward empowerment. "I plan to host Q&A sessions during the pilot, addressing hesitations and feedback openly. Transparency can forge trust, and trust can spark change." "Well, it sounds like you've thought this through extensively." The shift in Jeffrey's tone signaled an opening. "Let me assist you in refining your proposal."
And let's involve the leadership team in discussions sooner rather than later. It could unite them around a common vision. For the first time, Sarah felt aligned with Jeffrey, not as an adversary, but as an ally. Their discussion became a collaborative effort to unify intent behind emotional engagement and cultivate a resilient workplace culture. As she left his office, exhilaration coursed through her veins. This wasn't merely an achievement, it was a testament to her growth, standing up for authenticity, confronting resistance, and transforming discomfort into opportunity. The tension and sacrifices she had overcome felt validated, a metamorphosis that had been long in the making. That evening, with her proposal firmly grounded in authenticity and data, Sarah felt a blend of empowerment and peace. She would lead this charge, come what may. Along the path of vulnerability and courage, she had rediscovered her voice, a beacon for unity within her organization. Weeks passed, transforming resistance into enthusiasm. As the initial workshops launched, enthusiasm permeated the workplace. Stories flowed freely, and connections blossomed. Feedback began to echo through the office hallways, a testament not only to her vision, but to her belief that every struggle held the potential for growth. When Sarah received an email from HR a month later highlighting the substantial uptick in employee engagement metrics, her heart swelled with pride. They were truly stepping into a new era, redefining success one story at a time. Ultimately, in embracing the fears that once loomed over her, Sarah emerged with solid confidence and recognition, establishing her position as an innovative leader willing to embrace the messiness of connection. She was no longer tethered to the insatiable demand for accolades. She had found acceptance and fulfillment in the depth of shared human experience. This was her triumph, the achievement she had sought beyond numbers and spreadsheets. Sarah had successfully nurtured a culture embracing vulnerability and creativity, transforming herself as much as her workplace. From the precipice of doubt, she had soared to new heights, an advocate for authenticity in both business and life. Now, the journey wasn't merely about her success, but how others could thrive alongside her. This was her moment to shine, and she stood ready to light the way forward. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspired transformation and success. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, as every interaction helps us bring more uplifting stories your way. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and how she conquered the challenges. And, most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Real change begins with sharing powerful narratives of growth.